It's Live Bold and Boss Up podcast time. How are you? It's Steph Ash here, and we talk to Ryann Halo. She is a entrepreneur and founder of Halo Consulting. She kind of leads the strategy firm for small businesses, and she's taken some struggling salons and expanded it and made it into multi-million-dollar companies, and has consistently been recognized for her salons as the top 200 in the US, which is a huge feat. She obviously does speaking engagements and different consulting events around the area, and hopefully you get a chance to catch one of them. She kind of dives into her background and where she came from and kind of where that passion came from. She has such an amazing story and how she overcame it, but then also how she does, kind of like relates it to business.
Yeah, and it's not just the salon world that can benefit from, what she teaches and what she speaks about. It's anyone that has a company that's growing. I mean, the information that she gives us, it's applicable to any industry. So it's really insightful on what we talk about, and I'm excited for everyone to hear.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to chat with you. I want to get into like all of the things that you're doing now and how you've gotten to that point, but like the beginning parts of your story, I think are valid and important to hear, because I feel like a lot of people make excuses for certain reasons why they can't accomplish certain things. And I feel like you're like the epitome of like, don't make excuses, right?
Oh goodness, yeah. So this could even be like a hot take in certain circles, but I was literally just talking about this with my husband today, how I think one of my biggest like lights a fire in me experiences is when someone relinquishes the control over their circumstances by believing that, whatever it might be. So I'm a big fan of radical accountability. Anything in my life, good or bad, I try to look at it from a point of view that I am accountable to that and I am a direct cause of that. And for the good things, we definitely want to be humble and give credit to where credit's due. But I really believe, and maybe this will evolve over my lifetime, that somehow, some way, every choice that I've made along the way got me in this exact position. So I think it's very empowering. So I think that's my life philosophy right now.
Yeah, I love that. Whether it was a good or bad choice, it helped you get to where you are today. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's hard. That's hard to do, like radical accountability, especially when it's like something you're like, damn, but how,
Yeah, and like I said, it can be a little bit of a harsh reality for some people to face. Some people can't, come to terms with that with themselves, because it means taking accountability for the good and the bad. But the second that you take accountability is the second that you gain control and you gain your power back.
When did you realize that radical accountability? When did that click?
I think subconsciously, like, I can't place a time that I've drastically changed. I think I've refined it and matured. The same way I look at my leadership position, which took a lot of cultivating and a lot of development, study, mentorship, conventions, books. But the same principle applies in my businesses and my teams, that if something's wrong, I'm trying to take radical accountability for that. So if I go back to when I was very young, I think my mom was very empowering and independent and strong, and instilled that in me too. And naturally, I've always had this sense of independence. We didn't come from a lot in the young days, and if I wanted something, I was like, all right, well, how am I going to get it? So, she has probably have funny stories, things like me taking the lunch money that she had put in my account and like selling my lunch off to people to get money so I could do the things I wanted to do, like get lip gloss or something.
Mm-hmm.
I used to sell candy at school as if it were a fundraiser, but it was not a fundraiser.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I always found a way to like
You're a hustler.
Make a path for what I wanted,
Yeah,
and I don't put it on anybody else to do.
I love it. That's that mindset of like, an entrepreneur, starting your own business and just working hard to get to where you want to be.
Anyone can do it, you know? I mean, you have to find your path and what best aligns with what you value as well as what you enjoy doing. And I think that's the path to fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
You started out, what made you get your first salon? Because you have multiple salons now, right?
Yeah.
What made you take that step to ownership of a business?
Every time I try to tell this story, I always like leapfrog back because one thing really built on another. I was not interested in owning salons when I got into the cosmetology industry. I really wanted to do the freelance, glamorous, editorial, celebrity work. But before that, I didn't want to do hair even at all. So each thing was a little fork in the road. I believe that God or the powers of the universe, you know, it doesn't need to be named, but I really believe that God has always shown me a next step that was better than what I was imagining at that time. So it's this balance and duality of like having a vision and like a really clear vision. We talk so much about manifestation and vision boards and all this stuff, and that's literally step one in my coaching methodology is the vision phase. But then there's the other side of that of needing to remain flexible and going in the direction you're being pulled and what's speaking to you, and if you're clear on what you value and why you're in the world and you're a little bit open, you know, you end up where you're supposed to be. So yeah, I didn't want to do hair starting out. I didn't want to own a salon, but I'm happier, I think, now than I would have been if I had followed that exact rigid path that I thought would lead to my success when I was young.
Right. What did you want to be when you grew up?
So I really thought that college was my only path to success. I mentioned we came from a humble family, like low medium income. My mom was going to nursing school when I was a kid. My mom and dad got divorced when I was like in first grade, and she worked really hard, and it was like, you have to go to college to make the most of I was in the gifted program. I tested into the gifted program in like third grade, and I was the only kid from my school getting bused to another school. And it was just that message that you have a gift and you need to not waste it. And this is the one way that you can do that. So I believed that, and I didn't have a problem with that. And with that in mind, I figured I'd probably be a lawyer, or I didn't have the words for it, but some like CEO of a company, and that sounded professional and important. So yeah, that's what I thought at first.
Yeah, I feel like it's always so interesting the way like what people thought they were going to do and where they end up, because usually it's like totally different. And like you, like going to college and like there's one path and like that was the only way. I didn't know of anything else. And our parents probably like that's what they knew too, you know? So it's like,
yeah, you got drilled into your mind or subconscious, like, okay, doctor, lawyer, teacher, right? There's these like designated jobs that I feel like you learned or you knew
in this little box.
in this box, the gift fit in this box, and then that's success. So once you opened one salon, you were like, I'm not finished. How many do you have total?
We have 3 salons, but they're very high functioning salons. Our company is one of the top 200 salons in North America.
Wow.
We're scoring in the top 1 to 10% for all industry standard KPIs. That's everything from team retention, client retention, average ticket, profitability, that kind of stuff. So
Wow.
So
awesome.
how do you do that? You must have some sort of like recipe for success. Like, do you have certain things that you try to teach your salon to do in order to hit these certain goals?
Absolutely. And that's, we just celebrated 13 years in business.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And every year has been a process of cultivation, development, and educating myself and taking that radical accountability of like, where do I need to grow myself or focus myself more, and investing into my team. Like, it's such a evolutionary process. And through that, I actually developed my Grow and Glow method for consulting. So it's not a one secret sauce type of thing. It's so many things. It's so holistic. And that's also the way I approach life as well. I believe that you can't just do one thing and expect results. It's like, your mental health, your physical health, your work happiness, I can't just like chop it up and put it into pieces. So that's how I have approached Salon Halo and what we do there.
I like that. I like how you're looking at it from a holistic approach where it's like you have to have happiness at work and happiness in your health and right, all the components need to be checked.
Yeah.
Making sure that they're like at full capacity.
And I mean, not, again, I could talk about this for hours, but that's, for instance, in the salon, we invest into emotional intelligence work, communication exercises, technical education. We brought in breathwork coaches, financial literacy, mentors. So again, it's always examining and pivoting and filling in gaps and elevating strengths. So I have that approach in Salon Halo, that holistic approach of growing us and the team. Like team for me is my biggest passion, is growing that team of people. Everything else is like just part of the.
How did you
job.
even like get to that point of like, you have 3 salons, you're one of the top salons, right? And you're like, now you're doing talks, and how do you even get to that point? Like, how did you know, what the secret sauce was, or like what made everything tick? Does that make sense? I don't even know if that
That's a
question
great
made
question.
sense.
It's a good thing. It's a great question that I don't know that I have an immediate answer for. Make me think about that for a second. Every year was something different. I think for one, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. I remember when that book was on my list, and the message is that time and consistency will outpace natural talent and intelligence always.
Mhm.
So 13 years, we've had, the ups and the downs, and it's just building a little bit every day or every year or every quarter, and not giving up. So I think that's, if you want to talk about a secret sauce, it's just not giving up. And, we're all going to have our own personal months or seasons. I like to call it seasons, like times where we're maybe performing higher or lower or not in our best, or maybe there's something else going on in a different quadrant of our life that's going to divert a little focus. It's always, but if you don't give up, I feel like, and you continuously are brutally honest with yourself about what's working, what's not, what you need to fix. And then I really focus on empowering my team members and having team members that are aligned so that we can grow and build together toward the same goals.
I love that. And so now you have your 3 salons, but you also do coaching as well. So that's like a whole nother business.
Yeah, so it's called Halo Consulting and Education. It's an avenue that certain team members that have just kind of elevated out of being behind the chair to an extent where either it's not exciting, fulfilling, they've just reached their own personal success with that, and they're ready for something more. They want to give back more, and they've learned this grow and glow method and all the intricacies of what made them successful, and then they want to go help other people. And I believe that if we do this successfully, we're going to be helping hundreds or thousands of people, because if we help the leader of that organization, they're helping 10, 20, 50, 100 people in their organization. So my team is very passionate and supportive of this, so much so that like day to day, the salon, thankfully has what it needs. And if it really needs me, I'll step back in whenever needed, but it doesn't need me.
That's
So
great.
this is the direction like I'm being pulled into now, is to serve other people and other organizations and other teams.
That's awesome. How cool is that? How did you know that that was what you were being pulled in to do? Like,
so starting years ago, I would constantly be asked. I go to a ton of network. I mean, that's how we met. Networking events, and all my friends, for the most part, either are part of my team in Salon Halo or they're friends who have other businesses. And I'd always be asked, "How do you have a life? Like, how have you gotten to a point where you can have multiple locations, where you can go on that vacation I just saw you on, or be at this event, even, for instance?"
right.
And I would hear that over and over again, and I'm like, I can't just like solve that for you in a quick minute or piece of advice. So I still was being pulled into the salon because I knew I could do more for that team, and that was my first duty and responsibility, is to the Salon Halo team. But it was being pulled at to serve other people outside my organization. And finally, years later, I dabble, I'd help somebody, I do a lot of things just for free. I would just help people when I could. I love to mentor, I love to coach. And eventually somebody made me an offer I couldn't say no to in terms of being my client. And this was just a couple years ago. So it's like, all right, I guess it's time. So me and my COO, Brianna Muniz, we had a talk about that, and she's just so supportive and we're so aligned. She's like, you can do this now. Like, it's okay. You can launch into this next phase. So I had been coaching and consulting and helping, and I was a Paul Mitchell National Educator from the time I was like 24. And I would do business through that technical hair training. And so I've always been building to this.
Right.
And it was finally time to just like let it soar.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
It's great. Yeah.
Love that.
What advice would you give to someone who is like maybe not sure what they want to do, or they have a passion about something and like are not sure how to take the next step? Like,
so anytime I work with someone, step one, phase one is getting clarity on what you value, what you have to offer the world, who you want to serve, who you want to work with, a rough vision of what you would paint for yourself if you had that magic wand. And not that we have to be so rigidly stuck to that or even have all the answers, but you have to start by doing that exercise. And I don't think a lot of people take the time to do that, which is so wild because, it's your life.
It's your life.
You don't know. And if your scope of vision is here, that's all you see. You don't see the stuff happening back here. So that would be my first recommendation, is to get really brutally honest with yourself. Maybe go like out to nature, wherever you feel the most creative, and take everything out of the line of expectations, other people, this and that. But like, what would you do? What would most make your heart happy? And then work from that place. And you'd be surprised how much, power you have to create that.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
And not just, like the status quo or what you think your parents want. And when you think about salons, and this is something I share a lot, is another big motivator. When I was living in Chicago, being, pursuing freelance work, and I agreed to make a big pivot to come back to Spring Hill, Florida, and start my first salon, my 21st birthday. I didn't even know it at the time, but a big driving force for me was providing an opportunity for people like myself that were doing something they were passionate about through beauty that made people feel good and they were great at, providing them the opportunity to feel like a professional, to achieve their professional goals financially, freedom-wise, and respect. Because there's a lot of people whose parents said, oh, if you're going to be a hairstylist, you're not going to be successful. Or I could have took that voice and be like, well, I'm not going to do this salon. So I think if you just try to silence all those voices and really get real with yourself, that would be like step one, phase one.
Great. Thank you. I think that's important. That's where you have to start.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. How have you, because you do speaking events for business owners and things like that. And you talk about like growing and scaling a business like you have. What would be like some advice that you would give a business owner that, okay, they started a business, they're profitable, and then they kind of get to a plateau? Have you gotten to that plateau, and how do you reach the other end and keep climbing and keep growing and scaling?
Yeah. So in the Grow and Glow method, the first phase with multiple steps is vision. Then the second phase is creation. So creation has several steps in that phase, but systemization is a huge one. And we can break that down a lot further another time. But leadership within your team and focusing on what your team's goals are. Because there's businesses that don't have teams. There's a lot of different types of businesses. My specialty is a service business with a team. And you're probably overlooking how much more capable your team is than what you currently have them doing. You also need to consider, what is that person's definition of success? If you don't it's not just about what you want to achieve at the company, it's like a 50-50. And that's why I say in vision stage, you want to make sure that you're hiring people with, for the most, aligned overall core values, because you can't, if you're always going to be facing different directions, you're never going to be able to help each other both achieve your definitions of success.
Right.
But I can use my industry, for instance. One stylist, her definition of success is working the minimal amount of time to make a certain figure of money annually, spending the most time with their family. Completely different stylist is her goal is going to be doing education as an independent, as outside of the salon, a platform artist, being as creative as possible, wants to work and throw herself into her profession. And then I have another stylist who he's happy where he's at, and he just wants to spend a little bit of time helping out the team members that are looking to grow. So if I didn't know those things about these people, and we just had like a broad stroke effect, I'm not going to get their highest potential to serve our group, but also they're not going to be fulfilled and long-term satisfied within our organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then that has to do with retention too, like keeping them long-term, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. That's amazing. I love it. You articulate it so, I don't want to say simplistically because it's not simple, but you articulate it in a way that is easy to understand and kind of digest and be like, okay,
Yeah.
I hear that and I can take away that and I can go do that to start helping myself. And
Mhm.
yeah, I love that.
Well, I appreciate that. And I hope that everybody realizes it's so not beauty industry specific.
Right.
This is people. And that's where I'm super nerdy is I would not have stuck with a hair salon because of hair for 13 years.
Right.
It had its time in my life. It kind of came, it went. But my real passion is developing people, developing a team. And then, we do a lot of community work as well through my salon. So those things are what I value.
Mhm.
And that applies to, I think, any industry,
Mhm.
developing your people and growing that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all about people.
Yeah, it's so funny because it's so funny that you're right. It's a salon, but you're like, no. And that's not how I view it.
Yeah.
It's like this can be taken and put into any industry, any company. And I love that. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did you go to college?
I have a 10th grade education.
Dang, girl, that's awesome. I love that. I think that's like we had someone else on that I went to high school with, and he didn't go to college. He started his business while we were in high school. And I think that's amazing because you can do, you don't have, like you said earlier, you don't have to go to college and get that college degree and then do the fit in the box type of job.
Mhm.
It
And
can
you can
be
be
more
just as
fulfilling.
successful, if not
Yeah.
more.
Right.
Mhm.
And to your question earlier about the advice, it's a never ending process of learning. So wherever you're at, being willing to go to a certain conference or ask a mentor for help or pay a coach or,
Right, yeah.
So that's my, I feel like I have a master's through all self, piecing in these different trainings and books and
Mhm.
lessons.
Well, I was literally just talking to, who was I talking to? Another parent about like the school system. And by the way, they also mentioned like Florida was like the worst school, right? But then, so I was talking to this parent about our schooling. I'm like, why don't they tell our kids about, right, real finance or finance at all? And then why don't they really talk about, when they talk about chemistry, they're like at the molecular level, why don't they talk about like foods and what happens when you mix certain foods together? Because we all eat, you have to learn how to make a meal eventually. So like how, there's certain things that are mixed together that
Right.
can affect your body differently than
Mhm.
whatever.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
so articulate today. I was like, whatever and
Just talking. Hey, I mean, look, I'm super unpolished, but no, I could. It's a little bit controversial why people learn certain things in different academic tracks, and I don't think I'm educated enough to share an opinion on that. But it's definitely questionable why we learn some things and not others, and maybe there's, I don't know. I don't want to get
That's a whole nother.
too much of like
yeah.
a political
Yeah.
but I just think that it definitely, one thing I will say is I do think that the traditional academic structure right now does not necessarily teach to all learning styles or provide a broad enough understanding of the world. And it's unfortunate because, you know, as somebody who was labeled with this, like ADHD and ADD and all these different things, but also gifted and also artistic and talented and you name it, like that can create their perception of their life and what's possible for them. And, you know, like I'm not medicated on anything now. I was growing up, a bunch of different things, and I can still achieve at a pretty high level, like to believe, through finding what works for me. So when we have to put people in this box where they have to sit for this amount of time and they learn these set things, there's so much more to learn in the world. So I mean, yeah, I would encourage any parents who have challenges with their kids, because I was in trouble sometimes for not competition. As an artistic person, as well as a logical left, right brain person, it was hard for me to find where I fit in that. And I think, you know, just exposing them to more, I think if I would have had maybe some different sports in my life or a little bit more of we lived in Spring Hill. There wasn't a lot to do. So yeah, help your kids with that. You might be surprised what they overcome in terms of those labels.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, thank you, Ryann, so much for being on here with us today.
My pleasure. This is a fun conversation.
I know. No,
I have a couple things coming up, right?
Yeah, tell us
August
about it.
1st, yes.
Yeah, so we have a mastermind starting. This is the first and only time this offer is gonna be public, or this structure, the way we're structuring it. So it really is gonna be fun, special, unique. It's going to be a mastermind every week, Thursday, 9:30 to 10:30 Eastern time, for any industry that has a service they provide with a team. So we're talking, you know, restaurant owners, med spa, regenerative health, dentists, real estate agents, hair salon, nail salon. And we're going to go through the grow and glow pillars and really talk through how this has worked, and not just for me, but but other clients and even family. So I look forward to seeing you guys on.
Okay, we'll put your link in our show notes. That way people can find it if they want to sign up. Well, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Ryann.
Thank
This
you
is
so much for having me.
awesome.
Appreciate it.
And until next time.
Live bold and boss up.